Well, hello and welcome to another Devex Newsmaker event. I'm Raj Kumar, I'm the President and Editor-in-Chief of Devex here in Washington, D.C., and joined by Maimouna Mohd Sharif, who's the Executive Director at UN Habitat. Of course, UN Habitat is the UN Human Settlements Agency. It's the UN agency responsible for thinking about things like urbanization, which is a big story and often underreported. More than half the world's population lives in cities. That number is growing very quickly. We saw during the pandemic how important cities were. It's where the virus first spread, and it's where a lot of the inequalities first appeared. And of course, the climate story, what's happening around a climate emergency around the world, is very much focused on cities. Issues like air pollution, plastics, and really the need to transition to renewable energies are very urban focused. And we've got the person who's thinking about these issues every single day and leading them at the United Nations at a global level. It's a real honor to get some time to talk with you today, Executive Director Maimouna Mohd Sharif. Thanks for being with us.
And thank you very much, Raj, for having me and also having UN Habitat in the program. I say that this is very, very important and timely program. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, maybe we could just start with very quickly COVID. I mentioned a little bit about it, but what are the big lessons to you? What do you think people who are in your field, you started your career as an urban planner, have kind of learned coming out of the COVID pandemic? I know we're not done with it yet, but what are some of the big lessons about what cities need to do differently?
Thank you so much. I think first of all, I think the COVID-19 is a wake-up call for everybody. Either it's at the UN level, at the national level, at the local level, or even at the community level. I think this is very, very important. And at the same time, is also affected a lot on the, as you mentioned just now, the implementation of our program, especially the new urban agenda. I think it suffered quite a lot setback from the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's probably worth saying a word about what the new urban agenda is, because it was put forward in 2016, right around the same time as the SDGs, and right around the same time as the Paris Agreement on climate, but it didn't get as much attention as those. And it really is a major agenda, a 20-year agenda for how cities should transform. So you say it's been set back. What does the new urban agenda aim to do that's so different?
Yeah, the new urban agenda is a platform which, as you said, that was endorsed by the member state in Habitat 3 in Quito, in Ecuador, to see how we should, the how part, the how the cities and the country should be translated into the ground in order to achieve the 17 SDG that was already formulated in 2015. So 2015 is the target, but in 2016 is the how. But the how is now, as I mentioned earlier, is suffered a lot from the COVID-19. First thing is that is involved in terms of the economy. I think the lockdown in the country, the border lockdown, and that is, and also the supply chain, and is really affected the economic, the social, and the health of the people everywhere, regardless you are in developing country, you are in developed country, or you are in middle income country. So there is no way that we can escape from that. I think this is one of the areas that then at the same time is reduced when there is lockdown, when the economy is affected, reduce the ability in terms of the revenue, either at the national level, at the local level, to even implement. I said that whatever the program or policies that have been formulated before COVID, even our own strategic plan have been impacted by that when we want to implement it on the ground. So I think this is very much affected. At the same time, I would like to see is that apart from the setback, I think we also, as I said just now, it's a wake-up call. It's also an opportunity for us to do differently, to look at things differently, to look at the policy implementation differently, putting people at the center. Because when COVID-19 need, that is involve people. When people now bringing people to the center, and together with the the opportunities to looking into the digitalization, looking into the technology, looking into the internet, and also now is the best time, I think, to look back and see how we can recover from this COVID-19 in more green way, in more nature-based, in more in a way that looking into the opportunities to reduce the impact, not only to the human, but also to the environment.
Yeah, I know you just completed your participation there in Nairobi at the UN's Environment Assembly. And when you think about the big focus of that assembly around reducing plastic waste, when we travel to cities, and I'm sure many people following this have been to the cities that are rapidly growing in regions like your own in Asia, and you see very visibly plastic waste. You can feel and breathe the pollution. You see the traffic. You see, you know, migrants trying to find a place to make their own within these urban environments. It does often feel like cities are failing. Do you think that cities are today, many of these growing cities in low and middle income countries are failing, or do you think they're basically on the right path and it's just a question of how we find the right formula to get to where we need to go?
Yeah, as looking at the plastic or waste, yeah. That's why when in 2018, when I joined UN Habitat, one of the things that I proposed or launched is the Waste-Wise Cities initiative, because I realized that in most cities, the waste is a burden to the local government. It takes a lot of the local government budget to handle waste. So I think that's why we launched the Waste-Wise Cities initiative. That is one. And the COVID-19, I think that is also an opportunity when you talk about pollution just now. During the COVID-19, the many cities, many mayors, many decision makers go back to pedestrianization, go back to looking at the public spaces, go back at looking at the bicycle lane, providing bicycle lane, thinking about the new way of thinking how cities should be created, should be developed, compact cities, 15-minute cities, and all that. So I think that this is growing inclination and also the impact and the feedback from the experience that people in. So when you go back to the plastic, I think this is very, very important factor, that because to me, the plastic, the creation or the generation of waste is at the lower end of the nexus. But what we would like to see is that how this climate change or waste is related to the unplanned and unsustainable and unmanaged urbanization. So I think that is very, very important to link.
So it's like it's a symptom in a way. It's a symptom of poor planning, of not having a strategy, that you then start to see plastic bags and bottles everywhere in the streets.
Definitely, because once you have unplanned, unmanaged cities, unplanned here, maybe this is urban sprawl, and then unmanaged here, maybe there is no system, not only to manage the waste, the overall thinking of the sustainable urbanization. The end product will be the climate change. The end product will be the plastic everywhere, because in terms of the sustainable urbanization, it's not only planning, it's also involve education, involve people, involve children, advocacy. So that's why I'm always advocating holistic and integrated sustainable urbanization, or holistic and integrated planning. In this case, either you call it master plan or land use plan. We need to take the earth as one. It's not silo. You know, we are talking about the climate change. We're talking about disaster. Why we have the flooding? Maybe because it's too many plastic clog the drain. Why there is so many plastic? Then you can go and further and see where the root of the problem. I think this is very, very important to look at more holistic.
I know your agency had set a goal by 2025 to have your member countries have a national urban plan. I think it goes right to your point about the importance of planning. How is that going? We're here in 2022. Are countries stepping up and creating these kinds of urban plans as you'd like to see?
I wish from the 2016 And now there are 193. I will receive 193 new urban agenda report. But unfortunately, I would like to share with you that I think I only received around maybe 25, 26 new urban agenda. That is the report. But this doesn't mean that they are not implementing the new urban agenda. They also have countries where they have the element, the content of urbanization in their national urban forum, the national urban policy. And from the UN level is that even recently in the COP26, we made an analysis for the NDCs, the urban content in the NDCs. In the previous COP, it was only 69%, but in the last COP in Glasgow, increased to 84%. But that is not enough because it's only talking about urban content. But what we would like to see is that how they can implement the new urban agenda as a total, as integrated, in order to achieve the 17 and 169 targets of the Sustainable Development Goal, whatever it is. And to be easier is to improve the quality of life for the people in the cities. So what we would like to say is that because the new urban agenda is poorly represented in the global discourse and received to me is a little attention by the member state consciously, because they claim that, oh yes, there is an urban element in our policy, but that's the reason why the president of the General Assembly will convene the high level meeting on the implementation of the new urban agenda next month on the 28th of April. So we hope that this meeting will offer an opportunity for the member state to take stock of action taken and put forward commitment to revitalize the implementation of the new urban agenda. Because if we don't implement the how, it's quite difficult to achieve the target that we already put in 2015. I believe
so.
Personally,
it sounds like there's a big focus on your part on planning, which makes sense given you yourself were an urban planner, trained as one. You were a mayor in your home country, Malaysia, in Penang. You, of course, now lead an agency that focuses a lot on planning. You have hundreds of planners inside the agency who go and provide technical assistance. But many of the people I've talked to in cities and that we've covered here at Devex for years say that really the big problem is bankable projects, that they can't get to the point where they have projects that you can gather international investment to invest in sustainable infrastructure, green infrastructure. Is that how you see it? Is it that the planning is where we're failing, or is it the financing mechanisms to develop bankable projects? What's your feeling about the challenge we face?
I think both. As I always look at in more holistic matter, I think both. Sometimes many cities, they have the planning, but they find problem to translate their plan into action on the ground. They have the policy, but how? Because they have no capacity to translate the policy into what you said just on the bankable project, meaning that in order to get the investment or the finance, because we know that municipal finance, municipal or local government, some are rich, some are not that rich. So I think that is one. Because why they cannot do that? Because they are lack of the capacity, lack of knowledge and training. I experienced it myself. When I was a mayor in Penang, I was given quite a big sum of funding from the international corporation, but I cannot implement I cannot use that funding because I don't know how to do a bankable project. I can do the small project, but not up to that 50 million US dollar, where that project actually is needed in the city. So I think now as UN Habitat, I always encourage my colleague, we have the capacity building section that we need to work together with the mayors and also help them to through the training. Now it's easier because it's online training. At the same time, also we have the platform. We call it Cities Investment Facility. We launched it in the World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi 2 years ago, where it's a platform, initiative that when we bring along the mayors to present their plan, and some of the plan is also prepared by us. for that, and then bringing in the investors. Very like matchmaking, bringing the investors, and then what are lacking. So if I'm not mistaken, at that time in 2020, there were 34 projects being discussed. And I was informed by my colleague 12 is already going to progressing. So I think this is also I realized that we need that because I myself experienced that when I was a mayor. So I think we have to look into both. One is to prepare the plan. The plan is prepared to translate it into action, into project. One, we know what project to do is how to come up with the concept, with the bankable framework that we can encourage the private sector and also the investors to invest in, and also have the trust, you know, for they are confident enough to invest in the city, and looking at the governance is also very important of the city. So I think these are, to me, I won't choose one or the other, but I'm looking it in more a holistic manner. Raj.
I mean, listening to you about the challenges facing mayors and cities, and thinking about how central cities are to the climate, to pandemics like COVID, I wonder, do you feel that UN Habitat is fit for purpose today? You're entering your second term. There was a big discussion by the Secretary General about reform at the UN, including agencies like UN Habitat. There was a report issued suggesting that the agency could be changed pretty significantly. Do you feel like you're in a position, you have the tools today as UN Habitat to do what's required? Or would you want to see further reform at the agency?
Thank you so much for that question. I really would like to see that as we enter, of course, is my second term, and also enter the second year of the decade of action. We are only 9 years to 2030 at the moment. No, now 8 years. It's already 2022. So I think I borrow the words of the Secretary General. I said we need to turbocharge our effort to achieve a sustainable development goal, meaning that we have to leapfrog, to transform. So I think more importantly, I think we need to deliver the goals as one United Nations. UN Habitat cannot do it alone, but you have one United Nations and strive to pass the finishing line and the, you know, the leaving no one behind, no place behind, and all that. So I think what we should do is that's why in 2019 UN Habitat came out with one system-wide approach to sustainable development, which should be, we presented that to the Secretary General. It was approved and to be implemented by all the UN agencies, and we are the monitoring entities to look into that. I think that is one. Second is that in order to get to that fishing line, I think one area that I would like to bring here, that if we do not bridge the gap between rural and urban areas, if we fail to build bridges to connect the north and the south, if we allow history to prevent us to achieve justice for all, I think all our common future will remain hostage to the past. This is what I believe. So we need to do that. And for me, Raj, as personally, I like to work with the people. I look to the people that we serve for inspiration, because COVID-19 is all about people. No, and I'm a community-based mayor. I like to work. So this shows that how sustainable urbanization actually can be a powerful accelerator to achieve the sustainable development goal. So it's powerful accelerator, but we have to design and build. So for example, that is I want to share with you when I went to Mozambique. Yeah, just to answer your question whether UN Habitat is fit for purpose. I went to Mozambique after the Cyclone Idai, 1 month after the Cyclone Idai, because my colleague from OCHA and from UNHCR said, Maimuna, UN Habitat, you come after 1 month. Don't come now. Because he said now it's all emergency. So after 1 month, I went to a place brought by the Minister of Education. He said that, Maimuna, look at that building. I said, yes. That building still stands. I said, yes. And the rest of the building is all on the ground. I said, yes, I want more of that building. I said, yes. I didn't know because my colleague didn't tell me. That building was built using the UN Habitat Resilient Guideline. I want more of that building, not only for school, but for government building, for housing, more resilient, more adaptable to the situation. So I think that UN Habitat have the portion. As I said, that we have to put it into one UN, have the portion to serve the community. So because we have our normative products, normative work, like getting the guideline, the resilient guideline, the tools, and also at the same time, we have the operational on the ground. So we actually is quite unique. We have we provide the guideline and we can demonstrate the guideline on the ground. So for me, I think what we need now is how we can develop the planning tools to ensure that we can share with the mayors, can share with the member states so that we can implement it on the ground. So to me, UN Habitat is very much relevant now because 70% of the population will live in cities. Urbanization is very fast in Africa, also in Asia. So I think that is the time for us, I think, to move forward even faster than maybe the previous years. So I would like to say, not because I'm under ED of UN Habitat, but I think Habitat is very, very much relevant now.
I know that one of the things that the independent report during this reform process called for was the idea that UN Habitat could be transformed into being UN urban, similar to how there's a UN water and a UN energy, with the idea to what you just said about kind of being cross-cutting and across the UN. Is that something you support? Is that a transition you want to make at UN Habitat, or do you have a different vision for where the agency goes?
I think if you look back at the formation of UN Habitat, we are the United Nations Human Settlement Program. Human settlement, it covers all, the rural, the intermediary cities, and also the urban. So to me, if to change or to transform UN Habitat to UN urban, we are not dealing only human settlement in the urban area. We are dealing is all. So to me, I personally feel that we should strengthen the existing UN Habitat rather than creating another UN just to look at the urban areas. Because what happened in urban areas, you have a very close link with the rural area. Now we have the rural depopulation. How can we bring back the rural area to bring back the population to the rural area? Because many of the rural area are old people. So I think that UN Habitat should be strengthened so that we can tackle the human settlement program, either is it rural or urban.
I mean, maybe to that point, you know, in many advanced economies, like where I'm sitting here in Washington, D.C., some of the urban cores have been emptied out in a way because of the pandemic and the shutdowns and lockdowns and the availability of high-speed internet. And, you know, many people who have jobs that don't require physical location in an office, they can work from further away. And so you've seen a lot of movement inside major cities in advanced economies, maybe less so in places where there isn't as much internet access, or where the job market is very different. There's more informal workers and there's not as much office jobs. But do you think there's a future, to your point about the rural-urban nexus, where rural places become more competitive with cities to actually slow down this migration effect?
Yeah, I think that is looked into two ways. I think when you mentioned about the rural urban, and you can see that from the COVID-19, people prefer to go back to the rural areas because there are fresh air, there is more space. And you mentioned about when during the COVID, during the lockdown, then the office been empty and people working from home. I think this is the opportunity now to think differently. Meaning that, yes, we have the rural, but we cannot leave the urban area empty. So I think now there are aspects of recovery, an aspect of the green recovery, an aspect of urban regeneration. Maybe we should look into how we can use the space the empty space in the urban areas for another use. So I think this is the process is continuous, because there are also rural urban migration. Now maybe it's urban rural migration, but we need to say, as I mentioned just now, to bridge the gap between rural and urban. So the aspect of urban regeneration, the aspect of looking into now is a time for us to look into the planning of and also the aspect of regeneration. I think this is very, very important for us to bring back the livability. Maybe people say that bring back the culture, bring back the aspect of why people come to the cities. So I think this is it's a opportunity to do a new thinking about planning. Yes, new diagnostic and new emphasis about planning.
So just as we wrap up our conversation, you're just entering your second term. What should people look at your legacy like? So, by the end of this term, what do you think when people look back on your time leading UN Habitat will be the key differentiator, the thing that you've done that's really unique and different? What is your major mark that you want to put on this set of issues?
Yeah, when I joined in UN Habitat, where we at the end of the strategic plan at that time. Yeah, the strategic plan end in 2019. I joined in 2018, which is the time that I need to do the new strategic plan. And at the same time, the Secretary General gave me a KPI that, Maimuna, you have 6 months, but from January to 31st of June to come up with the governance structure of UN Habitat. After 14 years going in and out of General Assembly, I was given 6 months to do that. And I said that, okay. And then I came back, I worked together with the member state, and I would say, Alhamdulillah, I managed to get to submit to him 5 days earlier than the deadline, and it was approved by the General Assembly in November 2018. And we have our governance structure. We have 3 tiers: UN Habitat Assembly, Committee for Permanent Representative, and also Executive Board. I think that one thing that I would like, well, not to put to whistle my triumph, but I think that is one achievement. Not only to me, it's also working together with my colleague and the member state. At the same time, we also prepare the strategic plan. What the strategic plan that I will put forward at that time, the idea is that instead of looking at output, we have to look at outcomes. It's not easy at that time. Yes, even my colleague asked me, Edie, what do you mean by difference between output and outcomes? I said, very example I give to that. I still remember the example. You have one person have to clean the toilet. The outcome must be clean. Maybe the output meaning that you have to clean 3 times a day. But if you clean 3 times a day, the outcome is still dirty. You have to clean 5 times. But if you clean twice and the outcome is very clean, it's okay. So we are emphasis on the outcomes. That is the second, I think, the strategic plan was approved by the first Habitat Assembly in May 2019. I think that is the second achievement.
Just one quick follow-up to that. Do you feel the donors who fund UN Habitat programs understand that outcome focus? Because so much of the funds you get are earmarked, very specifically to what donors want you to do, which is a little bit different than the focus you have, which is to develop real outcomes and be able to decide what you input into those programs to achieve those outcomes. Is there a tension there or a challenge for you leading UN Habitat in that way?
That is my challenges also, because as I said that the strategy plan here is approved by the Habitat Assembly. They approve and they have to finance the program. Yeah. But of course, is to look from output and outcomes and to understand it. And also this strategic plan supposed to be implemented in 2020. 2020, COVID-19 came. It started in March. So Yeah, I think there are also a member state will have the for example, that is they give us the funding to do the project, but we try to convince that okay, sometimes they say that okay, I'll give you the funding for housing, but we look under the pillars that where is housing in, how we can relink it with the outcomes of the housing, for example, public spaces, pedestrian, maybe in terms of the community facilities, so that we can consciously link to our strategic plan. Even though the donors gave us one lump sum, I want you to do this, but we will discuss during the project, the concept plan and the project paper, that these are the things that I ask my colleagues, whenever you have a program, you have to link it to the strategic plan. Very, very consciously link it to strategic plan, link it to our indicators, so that we can monitor. At the end of the day, we can see where are we in the implementation of the strategic plan. So that is how we did it in UN Habitat.
Well, you are working at the center of so many issues that are so core and relevant to the issues we cover here at Devex. So I just want to thank you for taking time to be with us today, and for the work that you and your colleagues are doing at UN Habitat, and for taking some time to explore these issues together. It's a set of issues that we will continue to cover here at Devex. So we really appreciate your time. Maimuna Mohd Sharif, the Executive Director at UN Habitat, thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like, if it's okay, I would like to have one more point when you ask about my equipment. Yeah, apart from the strategic plan, we did the internal reform in line with the Secretary General reform. And last but not least, I would like to say it here. When I took over the UN Habitat in terms of because we have a non-earmark or voluntary contribution for the donors, it was in the deficit. But when I took over, I'm proudly to say that we're above positive. Well, but not much, but we are moving towards a better position of UN Habitat, and also in terms of now the better mandate it appeared in the Secretary General common agenda. We were asked to head for the local 2030 coalition. UN Habitat been asked to chair the future cities task force. So the expertise is needed, not only by the UN, it's also by the member state at the moment, that from my observation. So thank you so much, Raj, for having me and also having UN Habitat, and I hope that I answer your question fairly and right to what what you asked.
Very much so, very much so. I thank you again. It's been great to get to talk to you this way, and to everyone following along out there, be well. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.